Hi, I want you to take a look at this sample essay, which is an argument of fact essay by my esteemed student Janice Joplin. Everybody thinks she's dead, but no, she came and enrolled in my class last summer. Now, the case for anthropogenic climate change. So this is kind of like right in the wheelhouse of argument of fact type essays, that a condition does exist. In other words, can we say with certainty that climate change is real? That's the argument which is going on here. Now, the word anthropogenic means that it is caused by people. Okay, if you're not familiar with that word. Now, here's the thing. You can read through this essay on your own. You don't need me to read it for you. Okay, I'm assuming that you can read. What you do need from me is just a little bit of a guide as to kind of structure and some, I think, some interesting key points. Okay, so first of all, this is the layout, right? Just as described in the out-of-class essay guidelines. Double-spaced, you have 1-inch margins, you have a name, what I call the name block with the student's name, my name, English 205, and the due date. Now, your due date will obviously be different from what's here. Header function, last name and page number up here. Title is centered on its own line right here. Capitalize the first and last words and all significant words in between, which in this case means only the word for has not been capitalized. Okay, it is centered. We do not change the font. We do not go bold. We do not go all caps. We do not underline, right? We just keep it the same as everything else on the page. It's just centered. Now, the first paragraph is, of course, what we call the introduction. Now, as I said in my standard argumentative essay video, if you haven't looked at it, I encourage you to do that. There are basically three things that need to happen in the introduction of the essay. Hook the reader, that is, do something to get the reader interested. Introduce the subject. In other words, what are we talking about? Because that's not always clear, right? And then what's your argument, your thesis? Hook, subject, thesis. That's what I want to see in the intro. Now, so they begin with talking about the earth being destroyed, yada, 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 forest burned, trash filling the sea, species going extinct, right? Our standard traumatic, apocalyptic viewpoint. Now, please notice also that if you say things that are more than just what we could call common knowledge. If you're saying things that really come from research, you need to document that. Now, we do this with MLA. Right? That's the system that we use. Now, the in-text documentation for MLA is based on an author page number system. Now, the truth is, a lot of sources my students use nowadays don't have page numbers, so you won't have that. But you do have authors. So here you have Lindsay and Dalham. Now, I want to point something out here because this is a common mistake a lot of students make. You need both of those names there, okay? In other words, it's not just Lindsay. It's Lindsay and Dalham. I mean, think about if you were Dalham, how upset you would be never to be mentioned. Right? You did half the work, or maybe almost half the work. We don't know why Lindsay is written before Dalham, and it doesn't matter to us. But what does matter is the sense that there are both. Okay. Then we move down here, and then finally, the last sentence of the introduction is the thesis itself. However, based on the vast majority of scientific research, climate change is in fact anthropogenic and is caused by humans burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, and animal agriculture. Okay, that is the thesis. That is the argument. That's what's going to be set up. Now, the first thing that they do is they look at fossil fuels. Fossil fuels, fossil fuels. Right? Topic sentences are very important. I take a good look at topic sentences. Now, one of the things about this particular assignment is that you need to have a figure. Now, you have a figure at the back, that's fine, but you have to have some sort of citation, or note, excuse me, not a citation, but some sort of reference. See figure 1. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to scroll very quickly here. And we have our appendix, and there is figure 1. Then you can also scroll down and see figure 2, figure 3. Now all three of these sources are from our same source, Lindsay and Dalham. Okay, now if they were from different sources, I would have to mark them differently. Okay, I would have to mark each one separately. That did not have to happen in this particular case, but that may be a little unusual. Okay, I'm just scrolling back, pardon me, again. John Houghton. Now, here is a situation where the author is introducing the student author, pardon me, the student is introducing the author of the text in his or her text. Now, this is Janice, so it's a her. John Houghton states, I'm going to have to change this person's grade. The blankety blankety blank, right? Blankety blankety blank. So the first time typically you mention an author in text, what you're going to do is you're going to go back and say, okay, I'm going to use the first and last name. But subsequent references will be to last name only. Houghton shows, right? So again, we're back there. And then we have another C figure 2 down here. Another good topic sense. Another way to prove that humans are altering the climate by burning fossil fuels is by studying sea surface temperatures. Again, a lot of information. There's a C figure 3 about ocean temperatures. Now we start to see some other people. Walsh is getting involved here, another source. Then there's other sources. We have deforestation. We have a new source, Shulka. All this. Shulka, Gorte, and then we have Ross Gorte states, right, in Deforestation and Climate Change. Now that's the title of the article that Ross Gorte wrote, and so that's not necessary to put it in your text, but a lot of students like to do that. Sometimes it really helps with the flow. Other times it just gives kind of a nice sense of where material is coming from. One of the things that in 205 I like to look at is ways of kind of varying things up. You know, sometimes we have authors at the end, sometimes at the beginning of a quote, that kind of thing. Here's a see or he, right? Here's a quote there. Proudman there, Schmidt, right? So again, as you read through this, please note one of the really nice aspects of this particular essay is the extensive citations, right? They tell you where everything comes from, right? When Janice gives you a quote or gives you other specific factual information, we're not expecting to rely just on her, right? Janice says, okay, I got it from this particular source or that particular source. Now, Renee et al., E-T-A-L period. What is that? That is actually an abbreviation for a Latin expression that means and others. In MLA format, if you have one or two authors, you should list both of their names. Well, if it's one author, then that person's name. Two authors, both their names. But for three or more authors, MLA gives you an out. You can instead say the first person's last name and then use this Latin, E-T-A-L period, that's short for et alis, but et al, meaning Renee and other people. Were there 10? Were there 5? We don't know. We'd have to go back and look at the source. It doesn't really matter though, right? But the thing I want to say is, just like with Lindsay and Dalham, you don't just put the first author's name down, okay? There's Lindsay and Dalham again, right? Here's the conclusion. Now, if we go back to the standard argumentative essay, the conclusions do what? They do three things that are very, very important, right? They restate the thesis, look at the big picture, in other words, answer the question, so what? Why does this matter? And provide a clincher. Now, when a lot of you wrote your preliminary questions, a lot of you talked about a conclusion that just sort of summarized what you had said. I would like you to do better than that. Don't just summarize. Don't just summarize, say, why did this matter? Why was this important? It could be a call for action. It could be a prediction for the future. It could say, hey, it's a warning, right? But there needs to be something more than just, and I said this, and I said that, and I said that. Those conclusions are really not worth reading. There's nothing very exciting about them. And then a clincher, right? Something that tie up everything in a nice little bow. It is up to this generation to accept the fact that we are altering the Earth's climate and innovate solutions that will help us solve this pressing issue. Word count here, 1688. This is basically just the words of the essay. It does not include the works cited page or the figures. Speaking of the figures, I showed you these before. There's the title appendix, figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. These all fit on one page. That may not always happen for you. You may need to have more than one page of appendix. Also, it is acceptable to incorporate the figures or tables directly into the text itself. That's always something that you could choose to do instead, although most of my students use the appendix approach because I think it's a little easier to format. Speaking of format, here's the works cited page. Remember that with works cited, okay, it's double spaced with hanging indentations in alphabetical order, just as you see here, A, G, H, L, P, R, S, 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 W, okay? Now, one of the things I want you to do is make sure that you have all the format correct, okay? This is MLA. We're now in the 9th edition. I don't want to see earlier editions like 7th or 6th edition, which are done differently. Some of you may have learned MLA in high school or even earlier, and I know that some of you have said to me, right, in your preliminary question sheet that you said that. And that's terrific, but it is a little more updated, so let's make sure that we do things the right way, okay? Should be clean, straightforward. This is a very, very nice look. Now, is this paper perfect? No, as a matter of fact, I'm just kind of going through this video. I can see some mistakes in the paper. But you know what? That's okay, because nobody writes a perfect paper. I don't write perfect papers, right? At least not without some serious editing, re-editing, and editing again. What I'm hoping for is something very clean, straightforward, argumentative, well-researched, well-structured, and I believe that's what we have here in Janis Joplin's piece.